Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, lovers and seekers, those who are lost and those who are found. Tonight, I will be reading from the compilation titled Outlaw Creative, The Geometry of Life. We will be hearing from the chapter titled Artifacts Are What Time Leaves Behind When It Can't Move Forward. That being said, let's get started, shall we? Artifacts are what time leaves behind when it can't move forward. Time usually behaves like a decent road. It has direction, it has mile markers, it has a rhythm, wake, work, eat, sleep, repeat, until one season quietly becomes another. But sometimes time stops behaving like a road and starts behaving like a room you can't get out of. When that happens, life doesn't end. It just loses its forward gear. The body keeps arriving at mornings, the mind keeps doing its accounting, the world keeps making noise. But the inner clock, whatever actually gives next its meaning, starts skipping. That's when artifacts appear. Not artifacts like museum dust. Artifacts like a sheet of paper taped to a wall, a line written twice, a phrase with a signature, a date written like a nail driven into wood, a short instruction written to a self who will later be a stranger. Artifacts are what time leaves behind when it can't move forward. They're not notes in the normal sense. Normal notes assume continuity. They assume I will remember what I meant. I will still be myself when I read this again. I will still agree with the premise. But these pages don't assume continuity. They assume weather. They assume drift. They assume the future might not be stable enough to hold a thought in its hands without dropping it. So the thought gets fastened. The following line, quote, Daily Morning Inspiration, Friday, August 3rd, 2018, unquote. That's not a title. That's a tether. It's a pin pushed into the calendar. It's time being told, stay. And the following line, quote, Patience wins the race, unquote. That's not advice. That's a counterspell against panic. Not because patience is cute, but because impatience is what the mind does when it is trying to force time to start moving again by sheer will. And then the other kind of artifact, the ones that bite. The following line reads as follows, quote, Love conquers all is a bunch of crap, unquote. That line is not cynicism, it's triage. It's the mind throwing out a phrase that failed in the field, a slogan that didn't keep its promise when things got real. That's not being negative. That's the moral body refusing fake bandages. This is how you can tell artifacts from ordinary journaling. Artifacts have pressure in them. They're written as if something is at stake, because it was. They are the residue of an interior emergency. Which brings us to the strange power of recurrence. You've got multiple instances of the same date, the same motifs, home, owl, cat, two-faced dog, Polaris, the 0 point. The same type of formatting, headings, underlines, signature-like endings. That looping isn't sloppy. It's mechanical. It's what a mind does when time stops flowing smoothly. It starts walking the same hallway again and again, touching the same doorknobs, making sure the exits are still real. In psychology, you'll hear about trauma compressing time, how an event can feel like it's still happening, or how it returns in flashes. But you don't need a textbook to see it here. The pages are the phenomenon. The artifact is time's scar tissue, what remains when the wound won't close cleanly. Here's the key. The artifacts are trying to do two jobs at once. One, they stabilize. They hold a person together long enough to function. Patience, daily morning inspiration, may God hold you down, directions toward home, a North Star word like Polaris, a 0 point where things can be reset. Two, they signal. They point to what is unresolved, betrayal, danger, being unheard, being hunted, being the worst person, the need for invisibility, we don't want them to hear us coming, the need to locate allies, where is the cat? That's why artifacts feel both practical and mythic. In the same page set, you can find a simple line like a life hack, and a line that sounds like it belongs in a clandestine gospel. That's not confusion. That's compression. Multiple layers of self talking at once, because there wasn't time to separate them politely. So what are these, finally? They're field instructions written by someone who didn't trust the future to be stable. They're not written to be read, they're written to be found. Possibly by you, possibly by a later version of you, possibly by nobody, which is exactly why they're so blunt. No performance, no audience management, just necessity. And maybe the cleanest sentence in the whole pile is the one you just minted, rings through true. That's the sound test. That's how you know which artifacts are anchors and which are alarms. The true ones ring through, across years, across moods, across rereadings. Time might not have moved forward, but something in me did, and it left proof.